your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for an Oikos remix. Like a crunchy storm of sea salt praline pretzels, dark chocolate, and butter toffee, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 Oikos Remix varieties with epic mix-ins and 11 grams of complete protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See RemixYogurt.com.
Congressman, we're so happy to have you here. Eric.
Mike, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it. So, I mean, in the election, remind us, so in a district that Kamala Harris carried by 20 points, you won by how many?
Originally, President Biden won it by 10 points in 2020. Kamala Harris won it by half a point. I carried the district by 6.5 in this November's election.
All right, great. So sounds like a winner to me. Anyway, as Richard was mentioning, there's been some rumors that you may be running for governor. Feel free to make an announcement on the show if you'd like. But pending that, if you were to run for governor and you were to win and you were to today give the state of the state address, what would you be saying about the state of New York?
Well, listen, I'm a lifelong New Yorker. I love this state. It is the greatest state in the country. But over the past decade plus, we've seen a decline. New York leads the nation in out-migration for a reason. It has nothing to do with the weather and everything to do with the high cost of living. We have the highest tax burden, the worst business climate. The quality of life has declined. You see, obviously, the rise in crime, especially within New York City. You see the migrant crisis that exploded in New York. And frankly, the reckless and out of control spending by the state. They've increased state spending by $100 billion in just the last decade. And so, there are real challenges. And my objective, certainly, is to address these challenges, both during my time in the state legislature and now in Congress. And as we think about, whether or not to run for governor, what it is that we can do to reverse this out-migration that we've seen, to reduce the cost of living, to improve the quality of life, to bring businesses and people back to New York, and really make New York the economic engine of the country. And so to me, when you look at these challenges, you have to cut taxes. You have to rein in the size of state government. You have to increase domestic production of energy here in New York. You have to address the housing crisis in New York and infrastructure. You have to address public safety and get rid of the disastrous cashless bail law and these crazy changes to discovery that have resulted in cases being dismissed, even in instances of violent crimes being committed. So there's a lot of work ahead. And the question is whether or not you have the leadership and the spine to do it. Kathy Hochul has been an abject disaster for New York. She is the most feckless, incompetent governor in the country, and New Yorkers are paying the price for it.
And that's a very high bar. That is a very high bar.
As my dad used to say, they continually exceed my lowest expectations, and Kathy Hochul does that on a daily basis.
There you go. So two of the things that you mentioned, I mean, everybody I think universally everyone agrees that the cashless bail laws have to be repealed, and the crime that we're seeing is evident to everyone as to why that has to happen. But the two that you mentioned that are of particular interest to me, doing something about our domestic energy and doing something about our housing crisis. Just very briefly, how would you address each of those?
Look, the housing crisis is a critical one. And, nationwide, we're 7 million units underbuilt. Now, New York is a home rule state. And as far as I'm concerned, we have to protect home rule and make sure that we are working in concert with local municipalities to help increase the housing stock. This is a supply and demand issue, right? We're not building enough housing. People are moving out of New York City in many instances into Westchester and Rockland and Nassau and Suffolk, and even further up, Ulster and Dutchess and Columbia. And we just are not building enough housing to sustain that.
What do you think?
So the challenge.
Do you think rent control has a role in that?
I think rent control overall has been a disaster for New York. If you look at New York City, they have 50,000 vacant units, in large measure because of the rent control laws, which, really don't incentivize landlords to bring apartments up to code. And as a result, they're choosing to leave them vacant because it costs them more than they can charge in rent. And that obviously creates a problem. So we have a supply issue, and we have to deal with that. We also have, a tax issue. Property taxes are insane in New York. We pay the highest property taxes in the country, which is why lifting the cap on SALT is so critical to New York and New Yorkers writ large, and that's something that I'm fighting for within the tax bill that we're working on in Washington.
How's that looking? How's that fight looking?
Look, President Trump has been extremely supportive of our effort, myself, Andrew Garbarino, Nick LaLota, Nicole Maliotakis, our effort to lift the cap on SALT. I think we're going to get that done as part of the tax bill and the reconciliation bill. And that will be, critically important on the issue of affordability. But we need to incentivize, municipalities. We need to invest in infrastructure. We need to focus in on how to get capital, money into these communities. Opportunity zones are a great example. The opportunity zones can allow for investment, especially in, areas that have been, run down, or there's been a lack of investment for many years. And yet the problem is that it's focused solely on capital gains. Most people who own a mom and pop, own a multifamily house are mom and pop, and they use ordinary income. So we have to expand opportunity zones to allow for ordinary income to invest in in the housing market and build and rebuild. And that's a key issue. I've also talked about the need, frankly, where you have government surplus property or former military bases to build affordable housing in these areas. We need to better define what workforce housing is and make it easier for middle-class families to be able to afford where they live. And so there's a lot of things that we can do both at a federal level and a state level to help incentivize and support local municipalities to build more housing. What works in New York City is not going to work in Suffolk County or Rockland County. And you can't do a one-size-fits-all approach to housing. So to me, this is one of the biggest issues we're dealing with nationwide. It will have a profound impact on the economy, on the construction industry, on jobs, and on the issue of affordability. And that's something that at the end of the day is critical for everybody.
But speaking about Suffolk County, Jesse, I know there's some questions you have from downstate, or maybe not.
Congressman, thanks very much. It's great to speak with you again. Again, I was unmuted because I was shuffling papers, and Judge Weinberg hates when I do that. What I wanted to just first of you mentioned taxes quite a bit, and we talk about, especially here in Suffolk County, we talk about safety, security, and affordability. Maybe you could take us into maybe what happened on the floor. You had mentioned that where we are with the tax bill, with reconciliation. Two questions. Number one, first about that bill. Do you see that being one big, beautiful bill as the president has been speaking about? I know he's been open to whatever the Congress says is the best way for him to do that between the two chambers. Or do you see different bills, two reconciliations, and what type of different dynamics that brings? The second question, and maybe we can answer this first, is the dynamics on how to move forward with the continuing resolution, where the Republicans were united virtually. And I know you had a bipartisan support with one member of Congress in Maine that supported this measure. But Tell us, really, I'm more interested because you guys in the Republican majority must be sitting there with your popcorn watching the Democrats just implode upon themselves and beat themselves to death.
Well, it was fascinating to watch, obviously, this week as Chuck Schumer was getting steamrolled by the far left and the progressive base of the Democratic Party, frankly, for doing what was right, which was to keep the government funded. Now, he didn't do that out of benevolence. He did that because Republicans outboxed the Democrats, and we stuck together and were able to get the CR passed through the House, which Democrats did not expect us to do, and for good reason. Republicans at times have not been so great about working as one team. And so, obviously getting that CR passed, keeping the government funded and open was critically important as we move forward with the reconciliation bill. And the reconciliation bill, ultimately, I do believe it'll be one big, beautiful bill because it needs to be. There are so many key issues that have to be addressed, from the border to defense to energy to reining in the size and scope of the federal government and the tax bill. If the tax bill expires at the end of the year and we do not pass a tax bill, it will be the single largest tax increase in American history. And that's unacceptable to all of us. That will have a devastating impact on New Yorkers, on Americans all across this country. So we need to pass the tax bill. We need to lift the cap on salt, provide immediate tax relief to New Yorkers and others in high tax areas across the state. It is an issue of double taxation. But we have to make sure that the funding is there for the border to clamp down on not just the influx at the border, but also the deportations of criminal aliens. Make sure that we strengthen our Defense Department and ensure that they are focused on their mission, which is military readiness and lethal force, and deal with energy independence and increasing domestic production of energy, which has a tremendous impact on cost and reducing the cost of goods and services and transportation, and overall, from a national security standpoint, making sure that we are a net exporter of energy as opposed to a importer of foreign sources of energy. So there's a lot at stake in this bill. And, obviously, if Republicans work together as one team and recognize we're not going to get everything we want out of it. None of us are going to be fully happy with everything that's in the bill. But the bottom line is, if you work together as a team, you can actually get things done. And Democrats did not anticipate that in the CR or the budget resolution a few weeks ago. And that's why they're lashing out, because they thought that we would need their votes. And Chuck Schumer had a choice: shut the government down or accept that you got beat. And he chose to accept, obviously, getting beat.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
Custom window treatments are a small upgrade that have a big impact. No better time to shop than now at Blinds.com's Memorial Day Mega Sale. Blinds.com invented a better way to shop for window treatments, completely online with upfront pricing, no showroom markups, no salespeople in your home. Choose from classic shutters to outdoor shades and more, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. Shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day Mega Sale now. Save up to 50% site-wide, plus a free measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Congressman, it's Richard Weinberg again. I want to switch gears, a matter of great concern. You have a rampant anti-Semitism in this country. You have Jew hatred is on the march. It's particularly coming from the left wing and the so-called progressives and democratic socialists affiliated with the Democratic Party. This is becoming an untenable situation. Kids can't go to campus. You have demonstrations in the streets equating the protection of the State of Israel, which is the victim of a war of aggression against it, of terrorism against it, as somehow being genocidal. And you, and I thank you, have been a leader in the fight to protect the Jewish community, to protect the State of Israel. And I want to thank you very much for that. So what's going on in Washington under your leadership to try to deal with this cancer of anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiment?
Well, obviously, the issue of anti-Semitism is a big one, and we've seen across the country vile anti-Semitic protests break out, especially on these college campuses and universities, and the failure of leadership at these universities and institutions of higher learning. And so we're tackling this in a number of ways. Number one, the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which I have put forth, and we passed through the House last year, 320 to 91. Chuck Schumer sat on it for 8 months, refused to bring the bill to the Senate floor for a vote because he didn't want to offend Bernie Sanders and divide the Democrats. It was shameful. And now that he has the chutzpah to write a book about combating anti-Semitism, and meanwhile failed to act on the one piece of legislation that would have effectively done it. But we're going to get that done in this Congress. In addition, President Trump has taken significant action, withholding $400 million from Columbia University and putting other universities on notice that their federal funds will be pulled back if they don't deal with the very real issue of anti-Semitism on their campuses, deporting those here on student visas or green cards that are engaged in and engaged in propaganda from Hamas, but really riling people up on these campuses to engage in these violent protests. In addition, obviously, we're looking at the foreign flow of money from countries like Qatar and China into our education system, and how that's having a profound impact. So there's a lot of things that we're working on to combat anti-Semitism, but I would just say this is not just about anti-Semitism or Jew hatred. This is about a hatred of America, a hatred of Western democracy and society, a hatred of our Judeo-Christian values, and a hatred of capitalism. And you're seeing it. And if we don't root it out, if we don't stop this dead in its tracks, it is going to fester into a major problem for our country.
So I would just want to make two observations for our listeners. First is I've sat down and had conversations with probably about a dozen U.S. senators on the tax bill. And in each case, and no matter how deep red the state is, each of them have commented that they believe that there's going to be a significant SALT component in the new tax bill. And each one to a person has credited Mike Lawler with leading that fight to help bring back the SALT deduction. That's the first thing I would say. The second is, and I think this is very important for all our listeners to know, when the explosion of anti-Semitism occurred on the Columbia campus, Chuck Schumer went into the Witness Protection Program and sent an email to the leaders of Columbia and said, just keep your heads down and this will go away. While Speaker Mike Johnson, Congresswoman Virginia Foxx, and Congressman Mike Lawler went to Columbia and told them that this garbage has to stop. That is a profile in courage. That is a profile in courage. And I think it's very important that our listeners know who Mike Lawler is. And I want to applaud him for that and thank him for that.
Well, I appreciate that, Eric. And look, this is an issue that is important to me. I represent one of the largest Jewish communities in the country. People should not be in fear to practice their faith or live their lives simply because of who they are or what their heritage is. And across the board, we need to root this ill in our society out and hold those that engage in it accountable. And that's my objective. And it's certainly my honor to focus on this issue and lead on it.
Well, Congressman, I want to thank you very much. We've had the privilege and pleasure of having Congressman Michael Lawler from Rockland/Westchester, a great leader in the Congress, a bright star in the Congress.
He's the Clintons' congressman. He's Bill and Hillary's congressman.
I do not hold that against him. And I'm the House Democrat.
I feel bad for him. My God.
I'm the House Democrat. Jesse,
no, you're not.
Bad?
We've been down that road before. What a lie.
Jesse, do you want to make a last comment to Congressman Lawler before we sign off for this segment?
Congressman, thanks for all your work out there. Keep us updated. We look forward to seeing you down the line.
Well,
absolutely. Thanks, Jesse.
Okay, Congressman, on behalf of Eric Levine, Jesse Garcia, and myself, thank you for being with us. We look forward to having you on Let the Record Show in the future. Again, thank you very, very much, and good luck in protecting America. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You.